So here, Sheryl Guloy, PhD, sought to address her own sleep issues and in the process began to work on sleep mobile app research, using her background in education, mentoring, program development, and in making research more widely known to the community. She co-founded Somnolence Inc. to offer workshops, coaching, consulting services, and corporate programs on sleep health and wellness. She also co-founded the Somnolence Canada Foundation, a grassroots nonprofit with a mission to raise public awareness on the importance of sleep through SnoozzZfest events, which it has held at the Sacred Heart School of Montreal, SNC-Lavalin, and for health and wellness and fitness professionals. Take it away, Sheryl.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you to the Rotary Club of Westmount for having me here, and also for the guest from the other Rotary Club. Thanks for having me here again to speak to you about the importance of sleep. I personally, as my bio said, had issues with sleep growing up. I had always, even as a little girl, been a night owl. So when you have to wake up in the morning for school, it was not something I could do. When Saturday morning cartoons came on, I always missed my favorite ones because I woke up too late. And this continued throughout my life. And I thought, okay, maybe perhaps I could fall asleep earlier. Maybe it's something about me that I can change, right? And so I sought everything to help myself fall asleep. But every year I became more and more sleep deprived. And finally, when I was doing my my doctoral studies, it came to a head because I was teaching an 8:45 class. And one day my insomnia had become so bad that I did not hear the two alarms, one by my bed and one across the room. And when I heard it, it was already around 8:30. So I was living on campus. I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. I'll run. So I changed quickly, ran to Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, right? So I ran to the session, and the students, of course, no one was there. And I remember leaving dejected, thinking, what's happening? You know, what's wrong with me that I can't even get to this session at 8:45 when my students can? And I went down to the research lab, saw Luc Baudouin, who's a cognitive scientist. We were working on learning platforms, and we were just talking. And he said, you know what? I've had issues with sleep myself, and I sought to help myself with sleep. And I've come up with this technique from a cognitive science perspective. And why don't you try it? So I did. I tried it. It actually helped with the insomnia. I fell asleep. However, I was still a night owl, which I then learned after all my research, studying about sleep and circadian rhythms, which is your body clock, your biological clock, that the time of when you fall asleep is not necessarily, it's not actually a preference. What it is it's determined by different factors, external factors, but also endogenous, those factors that are part of who you are, that determines when you fall asleep. And some of people are born night owls. Some people are born morning larks, and some people are born hummingbirds. So consequently, there are issues that arise from this. But there are also other issues relating to sleep, meaning that not too many people know about it. And so we said to ourselves, Luke and I, after a while, why don't we just go out there and educate people on the research on sleep, as well as the things that they can do, because more and more research is showing how important and central sleep is to our health and to our wellness and to our performance, which is really what this webinar is about. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Please let me know if you can see it. Can you see that well? And you can hear me, right?
Yes, okay. We can hear you and we can see it.
Great, perfect. And so like I said, one of the issues here is, and do you see the next page, healthy living? We all want to live healthier lives. And one of the ways that we do this, when I ask people, when you think of healthy living, what do you do? Often they'll imagine doing the following: working out, right? So when I speak with people and I say to them, what are you doing to live a healthier lifestyle? Oh, well, I started walking, I started exercising, I started moving in general, and that's great. That's awesome. Why don't you continue doing that? And then they'll also say typically, yes, you know what, I have started to eat better, more vegetables, more greens, more fruits. Some people are eating more plant-based, less sugar. They think about their diet. But it's funny that often sleep is neglected. It is something that we do throughout our lives. We spend a third of our lives sleeping, and yet we take it for granted. I think we take it for granted because we do so much of it and we're not awake during it. And so, we will often hear people say that they're burning the midnight oil because they have to get a project done. Or, there's something in our culture that will say, it's almost like a contest on who sleeps less and gets the most work done. I've heard people say something to the effect of, if I could sleep less and do more, that would be amazing. And yet, what we know is that sleep is essential. In fact, if you don't sleep, but you work out, this past month, what they found was a study came out, and it said that for those people who worked out at the ages of 50 and over, but didn't sleep well, experienced faster cognitive decline than those people who did not work out and slept well. So regardless of their activity level, those people who slept well experienced not less cognitive decline, but the cognitive decline wasn't as fast as those who actually worked out, but didn't sleep well. Likewise, when people are talking about losing weight, how maintaining a healthy weight, then they'll talk about eating, but maybe they're not sleeping as well. And there is a relationship between how much you eat and how much you sleep, which I didn't know. I remember when I found this out, I was thinking to myself, oh, it makes so much sense now, right? So what they found is that for those people who are sleep deprived, it actually affects the hormones that are responsible for appetite control. So you have leptin, which is sort of your hormone that says, I'm satiated, I'm full. And then you have ghrelin, which is the hormone that says, I'm hungry, feed me. Now, when you aren't sleeping enough, what ends up happening is your ghrelin hormone, the feed me hormone, kind of stays on. Imagine a tap or a faucet. You have your ghrelin hormone that's going down that tap. But on the other end, one of those old-fashioned faucets, you have the leptin hormone that says, I'm satiated, I'm full. That doesn't quite work or function as well. So people end up eating typically more comforting foods, like salty foods, junk food, etc., carbs, but they're not feeling full. And why? Because the leptin hormone isn't being released to the extent that it should, and it's related to sleep deprivation. So what we say is, what if you were to add sleep to the equation? What would be some of the benefits that sleep itself could bring to you? Well, these are a few of them. There are others, but these are some of the main ones that I wanted to share. So it contributes to a long life. It improves memory. It improves creativity. Lowers obesity risk. It's good for your immune system. It lowers the risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and dementia. It's good for your mood, good for managing depression, good for managing anxiety. And it's also good for performance, whether that be, at work, whether that be with, employees, teamwork. I presented at a gaming conference. So for gamers who wanted to improve their play, athletes, students, it's good for that as well. And then if these are the benefits, one of the things we'll ask ourselves is, okay, so if this is the case, how can I obtain the benefits of good sleep? And we'll start at the basics, right? So how much sleep is good? Enough. What do we need? And so I created this table. I looked at some various recommendations from different organizations, and then I compiled them, and research studies as well. And I compiled them with the aid of some research assistants at the University of Montreal at that time when I compiled this table. And so what I'd like for you to focus on, just take this magic cursor here, is here, 18 plus. Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Just ask yourself, you don't have to say it out loud, but just think to yourself, are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Well, let me ask you again, how many of you have ever, or when was the last time you had 7 hours of sleep? Because I know for many people, it's a lot lower than that. And the average in Canada isn't bad. It's close to 7, but it's not quite 7. And what's more, think of your family, your friends, and their children. Are they sleeping enough? So what we've noticed for all those people who are following sleep, what we've noticed is that there are earlier and earlier start times for schools, especially at younger and younger ages. Now, this actually begins to interfere with the sleep of young children and also teenagers, young adults, right? So this is becoming even more pronounced once they hit puberty, once they become young adults. Why? Because their biological clock, their body clock, aka circadian rhythm, you'll hear that a couple of times throughout this presentation, begins to shift it to a later time. So think back to when you were a teenager. What time did you go to bed? Often closer to midnight or later, right? And that's natural. So when you think of, or if you're a parent or you have grandchildren, do you find yourself noticing that they are going to bed later? It's not a preference. It's actually their body clock shifting. But here it is. Here's the situation. Their body clock is shifting later, but they have to wake up earlier. So if they feel better going to bed at around midnight, but they have to start school at 8 or 8:30, are they getting the 8 to 10 hours of sleep that they need? Mathematically, it doesn't work out. So you see that a lot. And there's research data from reputable studies that say we need to do something about earlier start times at schools. So this is something that I also noticed when I gave, when I spoke with students. They themselves said that they had issues with getting enough sleep. And of course, that affects their growth, development, performance. And so this is actually what you'll find when you look at sleep deprivation and its effects. I know this is a I'm breaking all the rules of PowerPoint presentations. They always say just put a picture, but I said to myself, if I want to impress upon people the importance of sleep and how central it is to health, wellness, and performance, I have to put it all there and put the information so that it almost overwhelms you. You know, it's actually nicer because when I developed this table to try to make the research more, to understand the research better, it was even more unwieldy. But essentially, look at the different dimensions that it affects. It affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, cognitively. Sleep deprivation is associated with various things like obesity, Alzheimer's, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes. Take a look at this. I'll give you a few minutes to just take a look at some of these issues. Burnout, suicide, independent. By the way, that's suicide risk independent of depression. Mood disorders, difficulty with emotional regulation, depression, anxiety. Then take a look at here cognitively, rigid thinking. So how you think creatively is affected. Poor memory, poor concentration. And so there are obviously implications for performance there, such as challenges with learning, implications for safety in the workplace, limitations on efficient performance in terms of teamwork, getting along with others, burnout, service quality, if you have teams of people who are working with the public, physical, neurological issues. So in terms of impact on organizations, the costs of sleep is actually quite large. And when I was giving this presentation or talking to HR at a major shipping company about the cost per employee, which is over $1,000. I can't remember the exact amount, so I don't want to give it, but it's definitely share it with you if anyone wants to know. Send it to you. But it was so high that the HR person gasped. So that's just to share with you some of the implications. Remember also that I was telling you about chronotype. So chronotype, whether you're a morning lark, a night owl, or a hummingbird. So again, this is genetically determined. You can change it here and there, but a morning person, if they're working shift work at night, will never be a night person. They may work at night, but there are effects on their bodies. Similarly, if you're a night person, you're a night owl, and you're working a 9 to 5 or earlier, that's going to affect your health and wellness too. You typically won't experience the same quality of sleep that you would if you were to sleep at your normal time. And often you won't be able to fall asleep earlier because of that window of opportunity when you will be able to when you can actually fall asleep. And that's quite significant when you think that there are probably more. Okay, so figures differ, but on average, I've seen around 20% quoted in terms of there being night. So 20% of the population are night owls. So that's 20% of people who are having issues with your regular 9 to 5 social norm work schedule. With telecommuting, working at a distance, working at home, it's helped a bit, but it's still an issue. So what is this hummingbird doing here? We tend to look at chronotypes, which is your sleep patterns over your sleep pattern, right? So we tend to look at that and we say, oh, I'm a morning person, I'm a night owl. But did you know that most people are intermediate types and they're called hummingbirds? They're your 9 to 5ers. They're good with actually performing with socializing in the evening, which is difficult for morning people, and with waking up in the morning, which is more challenging for night owls. But they also too have to look into their sleep because not everything is determined by chronotype. Many issues that affect your sleep are things that you have control over and that are related to lifestyle choices that you make. So I'm just going to give you some really practical tips here on 7 things that you can do right away so that you can obtain better sleep and obtain the benefits associated with good sleep while mitigating the effects, the negative effects of missing out on sleep. And so the first one is this: keep a consistent sleep schedule, right? So make sure that you keep it consistent when you go to bed and when you wake up every day of the week, as opposed to, for instance, going to bed at one time during the week and then switching it up on the weekend because you're trying to make up for the sleep that you lost. That actually have been found to have an impact on insulin resistance. Doesn't really help so much, right? So what we would say here is keep a consistent sleep schedule during the week and the weekends. Otherwise, you're experiencing what we call social jet lag. So it's sort of like jet lag without the benefits of having, a trip and all the good times that come along with it. So what you want to do then to make sure that it's sustainable is to calculate your bedtime 7 to 9 hours before awakening. Okay, so you start with your wake up time, calculate back to 7 to 9, whatever is best for you, and give yourself that sleep opportunity. Now, for some people who have issues staying asleep, when you have a consistent sleep schedule, your circadian rhythm begins to adjust. Your body likes regular patterns. It likes routine. When you have this routine, many people will notice just with this that their sleeping will improve, right? And so now this moves on to the third sleep tip. What does your bedroom environment look like? Here are the things you need to do to make sure your bedroom is optimized for sleep. First of all, don't work in your bedroom. Reserve your bedroom for relaxation in terms of sleep and sex. In terms of relaxation, remember, I would recommend not having a television in your bedroom, which I've noticed a lot of people have. And to be honest, growing up, so did I. I had a TV in my bedroom, but it is not very good for two reasons. There's light being emitted, it's stimulating, and it tends to keep you awake longer. Secondly, it's not associated with sleep, and you want to make sure that your bedroom is associated with sleep. Keep your room cool. So what I noticed is that most people have their bedroom temperature set above 20 degrees Celsius. The optimal temperature for the bedroom is between 15.6 degrees Celsius and 19.4 degrees Celsius. Did you know that? So you want to keep that thermostat around between 15.6 and 19.4, I would say around 18, 19 degrees. With your covers and with your night clothes, pajamas, that's a good temperature for sleep. And then keep it dark. So some people like to sleep with a nightlight. That's actually been found by a research study last year to increase, it was associated with an increased insulin resistance. So there are risks of cardiometabolic disease with increase of insulin. So the risk increases if you have light in your room at night. So think about that. The next thing to consider is exercise. So exercise can also help with sleep in general. How much? Well, moderate intensity, like a brisk walk, 30 minutes, 5 times a week, has been shown to help with improved sleep, with improving sleep. And in terms of caffeine, many people love coffee and will have it with dinner. It's not the best thing to do because coffee, as we know, we use it to stay awake. And some people who have trouble falling asleep, who probably need to either avoid it if they're sensitive to caffeine, Or, oh, hold on a second. I have to plug in my laptop. It wasn't plugged in. Okay, all right, I plugged it in. Okay, I won't lose you. Okay, so limit your caffeine consumption to at least 6 hours before bedtime. And those people who are having trouble falling asleep, who are experiencing insomnia, may want to limit it to the morning or not take it at all if they're sensitive. Realize that the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours, but its quarter life is 12. So if at 10 o'clock in the morning you have a cup of coffee, it's equivalent to drinking a cup of green tea right before bed at 10 o'clock at night. So that's something for you to consider. In terms of alcohol consumption and nightcaps, well, you know, I have to admit, when I was having my sleep issues, I would have a drink at night because it would help me fall asleep. And yes, while alcohol does help you fall asleep faster, the kind of sleep that you get is really fragmented. So you're not getting the quality sleep that you need, and are therefore sleep deprived and groggy and never feeling quite great the next day, which I can attest to. So limit it to at least 4 hours before bedtime. We all work on tech. We all use computers now. This virtual meeting, this web conference, Zoom call is a testament to it. Given that, make sure to have a blue light filter on your glasses. If you wear glasses, you may want to wear blue light filter glasses if you work on screens throughout the day or at night. You may also want to use the night mode on your laptops as well as your phone and a blue light filter. So what I personally use, and I'm not sponsoring anybody, it's Flux. So f.lux, install that into your computer, and it's a great app to use. And then lastly, technology. So when I conducted a questionnaire, a survey, I administered a questionnaire, and we looked at a survey, and we asked people what did they do to help them fall asleep. I was not really surprised because I've seen people do it, but it still was something that I guess I found amusing, was that people were scrolling on their phone, especially social media, in bed to help them fall asleep, which in the end is counterproductive because of two things. The light, so light in itself is what we call a zeitgeber. A zeitgeber influences your sleep-wake pattern. It influences your circadian rhythm. The more light you get at night, the longer your body thinks it's day, and the later you'll fall asleep. So all of those people who have the screens, blue lights particularly, this close to their face at night, are experiencing the effects of a delay in their bedtime, but they're using it as a way to fall asleep. Now, I'm not saying that you have to turn off all tech before when you go to bed. I helped with studying sleep apps, right? So you can use those sleep apps, for instance, but make sure that your phone is face down. It doesn't have, that you don't see the light on it, because obviously that influences the quality of sleep that you get. And make sure to turn off your tech or stop using it at least 1 hour before bedtime. And that includes laptops, iPads, etc. And if you do these 7 simple steps, I would say simple, requiring some commitment, but definitely it's something that people can start integrating into their lives. It's something that will help improve your sleep right away, right? And so with that, I'm ready to answer any questions you may have if you happen to have any questions.
Can I go first?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Sheryl.
You're welcome.
For me, you hit it right on. It's an odd thing. I've been a night owl all my life.
Mhm.
If I go to bed at 1:30 in the morning, it's early. And everybody here can attest to the fact that when we try to have a meeting at 9 o'clock, it ain't gonna happen. However, I've always felt that I can get by on 5 or 6 hours a night as long as I can get 2 or 3 hours of napping during the day. And that's literally what I've done all my life. Since I was a kid, I've been able to nap. I can fall asleep in 4 or 5 minutes. And give me 15 minutes before dinner, and I can go all night. So I guess I'm fortunate in that respect. But my question would be, how does napping fit in or help with the sleep process?
Right. So it depends on your situation. So typically what we say is, if a person is getting enough sleep during, if a person is getting enough sleep during the night, then they typically won't need to nap during the day. Although culturally, we've done that in the past in terms of a siesta, and that was fine. You know, that was something you do experience, that little bit of an energy dip in the afternoon, and that's part of your circadian rhythm. But some people really need it. So those people who really need it, it's usually because they are experiencing the effects of sleep deprivation. And the nap actually does help. Make sure to keep your naps at around 20 minutes so that you don't go and experience, so you don't experience sleep inertia. Sleep inertia is that groggy feeling that you get because after 20 minutes, you start going into deeper sleep. And your sleep cycles every 90 to 120 minutes, right, through these different stages. And so you want to stay at the lighter stages of sleep, which is within that first 20 minutes. For those people who do nap, there's good reason, there's good research on that actually, that shows that their cognitive performance increases, their ability to learn is improved. So it's almost like when you're napping in those light stages of sleep, your learning continues. So you stay awake during those light stages of sleep. Imagine you have data stored in one part of your brain, and it's being transferred now into more long-term storage. And so that happens during napping, but it also happens at night. And so this is why it's really important for students to sleep at night, for all of us actually, if we want to learn something and learn it well, because of that memory consolidation function of sleep. Yeah, there's one more thing. If people have insomnia though, so if you have problems falling asleep or maintaining sleep, we typically wouldn't recommend napping. Why? Because you're releasing sleep pressure, that pressure that you build up during the day. And so you want to build up that sleep pressure so you can actually fall asleep and stay asleep. So one of the things that's recommended is not to nap. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl. We have a couple of hands up. Elaine, I think you were the first to put it up. If you could unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cheryl. It's very, very interesting. I'm not a napping person. I should, but okay. One question is about, because we hear a lot advertising about pillows, mattress, and everything. Any advice?
Yes, actually, I would say that people neglect that very basic aspect of a good sleep environment. So I've conducted interviews with different people who who have mattress companies or who have stores that sell mattresses. And essentially what they all say is the mattress should be changed around every 7 to 8 years, which isn't something that we do. So one of the things I would say is also flipping your mattress from one side to another can also prolong its life, but make sure that you have a good mattress that supports you, but that's also comfortable for you. This also depends on your sleep, the side, so are you a side sleeper, or do you sleep on your back, or do you sleep on your stomach. All of these things will play a role in the kind of mattress that is comfortable for you. I believe though, and I have to double check this because I don't have the research study in front of me. But if you're curious, I did come across a research study that said that for lower back pain can be helped by a firmer mattress, a medium firm mattress. But don't quote me on that. If you want to know, just send me a message.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Deborah, I think you're next for the hands.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you very much. When I was in my 30s, I worked as a nurse and for 4 years. And at that time, it was in our contract that we had to work all 3 shifts. And so I was constantly changing my hours. And I felt that I was either catching up on my sleep or trying to get extra sleep all the time. And so after 4 years, I gave up nursing. I could not adapt to the ever-changing hours. And so what do you have to say to shift workers that are constantly changing their hours? And have you talked to our health minister in Quebec about this? Have you ever given a chat to those people who force these poor healthcare people to constantly change their hours?
I would like to talk to him about this. I know that there are researchers who, so I was a consultant with the Canadian Sleep and Circadian Network to develop professional development for their postdocs. So I came to know some very prominent sleep researchers, and I know that, I don't know if they've personally spoken with the ministry about this, but it's certainly something that they discuss. And it's one of the reasons why I started doing Somnolence Plus, because there are certain things that are out of our control. Shift work is one of them. The issue for night owls is another. So not having that flexibility to work when you need to and to perform at your best, right? That's an issue too. So in the case of shift workers, it's particularly challenging, especially now after the pandemic and with the shortages. I can understand why you felt you needed to change your profession, which is, to me, unfortunate that that's where we're at, but it's a reality, and shift work does play a role in it. There is actually a disorder called shift work sleep disorder. So I always thought that was interesting, that disorders don't necessarily mean that it's a disorder with you. It could actually be a disorder in relation to a social norm or a social expectation, right? So that is one of those, because if you didn't have shift work, shift workers, if you could figure out a way to do shift workers more effectively and efficiently, would you even have shift work sleep disorder? Do you see what I mean?
I think that's what I had. Sleep became the most important thing in my life. I became a different person when I didn't have enough sleep. I concentrated on constantly getting enough sleep, looking for sleep. Like, it became something in my life that was, all encompassing, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It was, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I relate too, because as a night owl, as I shared in my story, it's something that night owls experience also.
I think we should look at the mistakes also that can be made when you're sleep deprived, for medical people, for anybody who's in that environment. I don't think we realize how many mistakes are made.
Oh, yes, definitely. There's a really good book out there by Matthew Walker. He's a sleep researcher, and it's called Why We Sleep. It's a great book. And he has a section on the medical environment, hospitals, and their relationship to sleep, and some of the issues that arise from mistakes that can happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vivian, your hand has been up for a while. If you unmute. Vivian, you're still muted.
Okay. Am I okay now?
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Yes, Andrew, Matthew Walker the book is excellent. I read it, but I still get insomnia in the middle of the night. I forgot what is the time that the sleep cycle comes back. Is it 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? Because if I know, maybe I'll try to go back, because I get out. He said you don't sit at the table until you're hungry. So you don't stay in your bed until you fall asleep. You don't sleep, you get out of bed, do something and come back. So how long is that sleep cycle
Right.
goes back?
Okay. Yeah, so there are different issues here. So to talk about the sleep cycle, so we share this information with everyone else. There are different stages of sleep that you cycle through every 90 to 120 minutes. And so you have 4 stages of sleep. You have N1, N2, which are light stages of sleep. Oh, excuse me, hold on. And then you have N1, N2, which are your lighter stages of sleep. Then you have N3, which is slow wave sleep or deep sleep. And then you have, these are your non-REM sleep. And then you have REM sleep. REM sleep stands for, I think we all know this, especially after, all the movies out there that like Inception or Nightmare on Elm Street, where they talk about rapid eye movement. So REM sleep is when you typically dream, although dreaming can happen in other stages too, right? So your sleep cycles through that over the course of the night, and every 90 to 120 minutes. Now, the interesting thing about this is the relationship between deep sleep and REM sleep. So deep sleep, at the beginning of the night, your deep sleep, you experience more deep sleep than REM sleep. At the end of the night, you experience more REM sleep than deep sleep. So there's a relationship there between those 2 stages, and you need all of these stages to have optimal sleep. Now, in your case with sleep maintenance, insomnia, is that what you have? Is that what, if you have difficulty staying asleep, then you're not able to cycle through all the stages of sleep throughout the night. Not able to cycle as often or as much as you should, right? So because you're cutting your sleep is being cut short. What I would say here is, when Matthew Walker was saying get out of bed, stay up, it's so that you don't associate your bed with remaining awake. So in that case, go to another room like you're doing, stay there until you feel tired, but then go back to bed, right? And try to get as much, what I would say is just try to get as much sleep as you can. So let's just say you're only getting 5 hours of sleep, but you need 7, right? Don't worry so much that you're getting 5 hours. Focus much more on the consistency of the sleep and giving yourself that sleep opportunity and being able to relax. A lot of insomnia is related to that as well. Now, I'm not a physician, so I can't diagnose and I don't treat, but I coach. And I don't know very much about your particular situation. However, what I can do is give you tips on issues or techniques and strategies to help you stay calmer during the day. Because here's one other tip you might want to try. So people tend to think of sleep only at night, but good sleep starts during the day. How you're able to regulate your emotions during the day, your stress, your anxieties, learning techniques for relaxation, giving yourself breaks throughout the day will help you in falling asleep at night. So try things like that. And if you have any questions, just message me. Right.
Thank you.
Last question goes to Rod.
Well, sorry, my voice has really gone on me today. But I'm a basket case when it comes to sleep. I have central sleep apnea, so a CPAP machine doesn't do a damn bit of good to me. it's easier, I think, for me to go to sleep with the television on. Maybe a distraction of some sort, I don't know. And then I'll wake up maybe 2 hours later and turn it off. But hopefully, many days I do get the REM sleep, sort of 5 in the morning for a couple of hours. But apart from that, I suspect I only get about 4 hours sleep a night between napping.
Yes. Well, in terms of central sleep apnea, that's challenging, right? It's a challenging situation because it's not just obstructive; it's actually the way that the brain is both. So you know what I mean? So what I would suggest there is, when you speak, have you spoken with your physician about other things that you could do in terms of treatment, or is just basically the CPAP?
Oh, I mean, over the years, I've done everything, I guess. Sleep, this, that, and the other.
You know what I would say here?
If I turn the light out, my brain goes on.
Right. Well, here's where napping can help during the day, because I know that when you have sleep apnea, chronic fatigue during the day is challenging. So try to get as much sleep as you can, when the opportunity arises for napping. In terms of the CPAP, I'm sure you've tried everything, so I'll probably be reiterating things people have said, but you go back to your provider and say, okay, is there something else, a different setting that might help me make the CPAP more effective for me? That's another issue. There are also other things for central sleep apnea. Well, this is more for obstructive sleep apnea, such as like sleeping on your side, etc. And then you have sleep apnea exercises, but again, it's more for obstructive sleep apnea.
Yeah.
So I think in situations like this, where people are experiencing chronic sleep disorders or conditions, this is where I think we need to not compound upon the issue by worrying about it, because worrying about it then ends up contributing to more sleep issues like insomnia. So here's where I say, as much as I said there's like the negative aspect of sleep, there are things we can do to mitigate it. You're already taking one great step. You do have a CPAP machine, just use it regularly. You can, as much as you can, sleep on your side, even though it's not obstructive. It's just something I'm going to say. Then I would also say too, try relaxation guided meditations if that's something that you like. Exercise, all those sleep tips. Just practice good sleep hygiene. Make sure that you're also eating well and exercising. Do the best that you can. I myself have an issue. I mean, I'm one of those that are extreme night owls. So technically, I'm still a little bit more flexible than others who are extreme night owls, but I will always, I could, if I wanted, get a diagnosis, and I'm pretty sure I'd get the diagnosis that I have delayed sleep phase disorder, which will never change. But this is related to social norms again. So what I do now is I know that to live in this world, I still have to wake up early, but I try to make sure that I do the best I can so that I mitigate the effects of lost sleep. I hope that helps you.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
We have one last question from the chat, which was what you think of sleeping technology like Oura rings.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So a quick comment about that.
Sure. So there are different kinds of sleep technology, sleep apps. So this, in terms of Oura rings, Fitbits. So these are wearables. They can be really good for tracking your sleep, keeping yourself mindful of sleep. They do tend to not always be accurate, or as accurate as, let's say, basically as accurate as other methods, the gold standards, like which is your EEG, right? But it's useful. Where I do tend to have an issue with wearables is this. people tend to look at their wearables and kind of like the way women and men used to use measuring tape to see or look at a scale to see how much they were gaining or losing in terms of their weight and becoming obsessed by it. This is where I see an issue. So use an Oura Ring if you feel that it is helping you move forward towards your fitness goals. It provides interesting information. Realize that it's not 100% accurate, but it does give you some useful information. If though you find yourself now tracking and now becoming anxious about your sleep, then stop. Use it when needed, then stop using it. And then use it as an evaluated, it's a tool. Use it as a tool to keep you on the right track, but don't live your life by it. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
I think the idea is don't worry about these things so much. It'll help.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like what I'm saying, it's good to be mindful, but if you're getting worried because of it, then it's detrimental to your sleep. There you go.
Well, thank you, Sheryl. This was it was very informative. I like these sleep tips, and it was very controversial. Like I had a lot of questions, so it was very good. I think we could, Heather, can we stop